What is up, my crowdfunding nerds? This is Andrew Lowen of Crowdfunding Nerds here solo today to talk about finding ways to deliver incredible value to your team. So I talk about, delivering value to my team as a business owner, as a Crowdfunding Nerds, Next Level Web, and Lowen Games owner of those brands, and then generally how to deliver exceptional value to your fans. And how, one way that I did that I felt was highly impactful on my fans, that turned a number of people into my true fans. We're talking about the concept of 1,000 true fans a little bit, and how I turned people from people that liked my game into true fans that will back and support whatever it is that we make. Let's get into it.
Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by Hero Time Manufacturing. That is Hero Time, the numeral one.com. Hirsch Gleck has been a regular on our podcast. We highly recommend his services. He is a man of integrity. Hero Time, they can make anything. They've got competitive pricing, and they even do game prototypes. So make sure to check out Hero Time, numeral one.com. A link is in the show notes. And if you use the code crowdfundingnerds101, you can get a 3% discount on your production through them. Let's get back into the episode.
Game begin.
Let's go.
Or the Alliance.
Amazing.
What is up, my crowdfunding nerds? This is Andrew Lowen here with a solo episode today. Not joined by Sean, and that's not by design or anything. It turns out that, so a couple of things before I introduce the episode. Turns out that the recording system that we were using it's failing to finish processing all of our episodes that we've been recording. So normally we release an episode every Monday at 5 a.m. Central Standard Time for you guys to be able to listen to throughout the week. However, the last 2 Mondays have been, fails. And that's because every episode that we had recorded before we left on our big crowdfunding nerds adventure, which I can get into, was it just never finished processing. So our podcast editors couldn't take it and fix it. So, and prepare them for release. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Usually we release episodes every Monday, but we evidently didn't have enough episodes that were prepared before we left. And the ones that we recorded were messed up. So we're recording on Zoom right now, trying to find a different podcasting software, and we'll get there. But in the meantime, you're going to get episodes every Monday again, Lord willing, and you'll be able to have a good time with me in your ears like you normally do. You just won't get sexy Irish Sean's beautiful Irish South African voice combination until next week. Now, I wanted to talk about what we did. So there was this event. It was called Strong Tower Con, and it was in Waukesha, Wisconsin. A convention with about 450 players. And this was the site that I ran the Deliverance Raid, which some of you listening might know what that is, others might not. I can explain. Last year. And I decided as a company, Lowen Games, my publishing company that does Deliverance, we decided to go back there, revamp and make a new raid and have a lot of fun with people. And so I decided to make it an entire staff retreat, because all of our company, every single person in our company except for one, is like a regular board gamer, and or like plays RPGs or TCGs or whatever. And so we're all super nerds except for one guy who I'll talk about in a little bit. But I'm like, why not just invite everyone? So my Deliverance team was coming, my artist and my graphic designer and a story guy and game developer. I was like, why not just invite the Crowdfunding Nerds crew as well? And so we invited Sean from Ireland and actually Ryan from China, but Ryan was actually the only one unable to make it. He had a move and whatnot. We invited Rick and Alex from San Diego, Jacob from Kentucky, and then we had people from Washington and Ohio and South Carolina, and we had a great time. And me from Texas. So all of us went to Wisconsin. We had a good time. I wanted to talk about this experience from the lens of running a business, and kind of, this podcast is all about what we're actively doing to improve our business ventures and the ventures of our clients, because we run a marketing agency and we serve clients, and a lot of them are going to Kickstarter. We've got, probably the busiest we've ever been right now, because I think that the tariffs and the uncertainty caused a number of publishers to hold off on releasing their projects, and then now in September and the month of October, there are going to be a ton of projects, more than usual, in what is already a very busy month, launching because of the tariffs kind of stabilizing. So here we are at a very, very busy time. And I decided to ask all of the team to take almost a week off. And I'm using air quotes right now because everybody brought their laptops. Everybody, was prepared to work in their hotel rooms and whatnot in order to facilitate this and make it everything that they could. I gave people the opportunity to come just like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday if they wanted to. But I told them that I would be there on Wednesday, and and every single person elected to show up on Wednesday, spend a full 6 days, bring our laptops and everything so that we can continue working while hanging out and whatnot. And it was a really great time. So I want to talk about this on 3 different fronts. One is my personal company I use as a case study for how I'm running a business. And this might be particularly useful that Sean is not on the call. I don't have to say anything embarrassing that he has to respond to. He can just listen to it after the fact. And then, so that's first. How I run a company, how I get people to want to do, to want to participate in things, just my philosophy on things like that. Then the second is going to the event and making it like a really, really big event for Deliverance, and making it something for my publishing company, something that would build our fans into we recorded an episode a while ago called 1000 True Fans. I want to develop people into those true fans. And so one of the major things that we did was really focused on a group of, by all rights, of a rather small convention compared to others that we've attended. Origins had over 18,000 people attend. BGG Con is like between 2,000 and 4,000. We've got Gen Con is, like 80,000 or more people. And there's this little convention at 450 people. It's not even a local convention, so it's like I have to fly there, I have to get a hotel, and and in addition to moving items like my trade show booth and other things like that to this event. So the people actually there, and then I figure I'd give you a little bit of an update on what we're doing in regard to selling stuff and helping others, as well. So let's start with, and there's probably going to be business advice and marketing advice peppered through this entire conversation, but I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, and just kind of sharing with you what's on my mind. So let's dive in. So first things first, the reason that I made this particular trip, so we were going to bring our Deliverance product to the event. We were going to run a Deliverance Raid, and that's a very special event. So let me explain what that is and why it's special. Back in the day, I used to be a big time MMORPG player. I played World of Warcraft. I played all sorts of MMOs. Elder Scrolls Online. Guild Wars 2. There were many others that I gave a try that I'm just not going to mention because I didn't spend long enough in them. But World of Warcraft in particular, to give you an idea of how hardcore I was, I was a guild leader, I was a raid leader. I spent out of a roughly 11-year period that I played World of Warcraft between like, what is it, 2004 to like 2015. I think I spent about 3 if you were to tie my play time back to back on my main character, it was about 3 years of time. It's close to 1,000 days played. In like, if you were to stack the hours in a row, it'd be about 1,000 days in a row that I played. Somehow graduated college, got married, started a business, and I don't know how I did all that while playing World of Warcraft for 8 hours a day on average. Is what it would be. Like 7 hours a day is like on average for 10 or 11 years, I think, is what it amounts to. So yeah, it was pretty impressive. Anyway. Hey, crowdfunding nerds, if you're looking for an awesome fulfillment partner for US shipping, you should really consider Bridge Distribution and Fulfillment. I personally use them. I've used them for multiple projects. They do such a great job. They also can fulfill Amazon orders and get you prepped for Amazon and their warehousing team. I have been so happy using Bridge Distribution. I'm really proud that they're sponsoring us. If you reach out, bridgedist.com, that's bridgedist.com, let them know we sent you. All right, now back to the show. One of the things that you did in World of Warcraft was you would raid like you would go take, between depending on the times, it'd be 40 people or 25 people or 10 people into a dungeon, and you would slay giant bosses that had epic loot that took a lot of coordination. And as World of Warcraft kind of evolved, the dungeons got more challenging, more interesting. The boss mechanics became more and more varied, and the challenge increased. And so what would happen is you would go in with a group of people. You would say, I have no, like back in the day before there were videos on like how you would fight these bosses, I was running Molten Core and trying to, which was the first raid that was released, trying to figure out how do I fight this guy, So we would clear all of the enemies down toward what looked like this giant cave entrance that looked like a point of interest. And we, all of 40 of us would get in there, and then we'd figure out, and I'm the raid leader, by the way. So because I'm just the most vocal one, probably I can't abide people, not talking, or, when chaos happens and nobody is giving direction, I tend to be the one that speaks, so I naturally kind of fell into this role of the leader of the raids. And so we got to this boss. His name was Lucifron, and he was like this gigantic lizard. It's like I don't know, like a fire lizard. And he had two, I'll call them ads or lieutenants or, mobs that were next to him, and two enemies that were next to him, to use like common speak. And the only way to figure out what it is that they did was to run in and have the tank run in and aggro them and figure out what it is that they did. So we had no idea what to do. This is back in the day before, we knew anything about raiding. We just took our 3 beefiest tanks, and we had one on each one of them. And the tallest one was Lucifron, this boss in the middle. And we were like, all right, keep these tanks alive and let's kill these guys, And so we would, we try to have various strategies like, all right, let's tank the ads, or let's tank these enemies. Let's attack them first, and then we'll attack the boss after that, and just do as much damage as we can. And we didn't really have good gear at the time, and so we would get wrecked in one way or another. The boss would deal too much damage, more damage than we expected, and then he's running around killing everybody, all the healers, while we are not sure what to do. And then we try again, and this time we put more healers focused on our main tank, and we focus on dropping the two lesser enemies, and so we fight, and we go, and we end up dropping the 2 lesser enemies. And then this guy has some sort of like can't remember what it was, but some sort of fiery like area of effect damage attack that ended up wiping us again. And so we had to try it a third time and we downed him. It felt pretty good. And that dungeon, Molten Core, had 8 different bosses that you could fight. And then after you beat all 8 bosses, you could go into the center area and fight a 9th boss, I believe, that is named Ragnaros. And I say I believe, meaning that I think there are a total of 9 bosses in there, but it could be 7 plus Ragnaros anyway. So Ragnaros was this big fire titan that would stand. There was this big cut scene, if you will, before the fight began, and where he smashes one of his lieutenants that kind of brings all the raid to him. And then he just is this gigantic like fire monster with a big hammer that sits in the center of this lava filled area. And that boss took us weeks to learn and to try to attack. And the only way that we could fight this guy was we had to get through like all 7 of the bosses first, which would take, we'd go for it once each night, for 4 to 6 hours. We'd raid and we'd get as far as we could. We'd clear 3 bosses the first night, and then 2 bosses the next night, and then 1 boss the next night, 1 boss the night after. And then finally we have like 1 or 2 nights left to just focus on this one guy. And the fight was difficult. He would attack the main tank. He would fire a bunch of explosive fireballs at everybody, and then he disappeared. This is where we would die. He would disappear, and then all of these like fire monsters would come in from the edge, and you would have to damage. They would deal like big area damage around them. At each one of them, there'd be like 8 monsters that come in, and you have to destroy them fast enough to make it to kind of reset, so that when Ragnaros, the fiery titan, appeared again, you could heal the tank and everything. And it was this kind of 2-phase fight would alternate back and forth. So you would have this fire titan smashing and dealing AoE big fire damage to everybody that needed to get healed, and then you would have these monsters come in and attack, and the fire titan would disappear. So all the tanks needed to get the attention of the monsters while everyone did damage to them, and they needed to drag them to one place so that all of the rain of blizzards and whatever that you did that damaged everything at the same time could hit all 8 of them. And that's the only way, kind of alternating back and forth between the titan and then the fire monsters, and the titan and then the fire monsters. And you would damage maybe between 15 and 20% of the big titan's health per I guess phase that the titan was out there. And lastly, it kind of became a fight about how much mana the healers had and how much damage that the raid sustained. So eventually, that we started to make sure everyone had bandages so that they could heal themselves rather than the healers having to heal them. And we tried to make sure that others were as independent as possible, so that the healers only had to heal like the essential people. And so that we weren't wasting our mana healing everybody, because what would happen is we'd run out of mana and then die because we don't have enough to heal the main tank. And so eventually, after I want to say it was like 6 to 8 weeks of time, we're getting better and better gear. We finally killed this boss, this big titan, this fire titan. And the sound that I heard, so we used a voice chat called Ventrilo at the time, and there's Mumble, and now there's Discord. But a lot, there were lots of different voice chats that we had at the time. But the sound that I heard through my headphones it was like cheering and excitement when we finally dropped this giant fire titan. It was deafening, and it was one of the most memorable moments I've ever had gaming. And so now here I am, in 2025, or I guess last year was the first year we did it, 2024. Here I am thinking, the game that I made, I have this it's always kind of had this vision of being a video game on a table that kind of mimicked in a way the great MMOs that I've played and whatnot. But I built the game to be an experience. The experience was that it needed to feel like I felt when I played the game. And so back when I started, I want to say it was 2016 when I started making this, making my original first edition Deliverance. Um, I wasn't a good game designer, but I knew the experience that I wanted players to have. And so over time, we really dialed it in, and it was kind of like a small scale. Maybe, if I were to liken it to an MMO, it'd be like running through a 5-man dungeon, or 5-player dungeon, where you'd fight a boss at the end, just like normal, and or maybe a couple of bosses, but the experience was very small scale. But the way that I designed it, I kind of modeled it after that MMO style, so that if it was possible, I could scale infinitely the number of players so that we could get to the big 40-person epic raid. That was kind of my vision at the time. And so we did it last year. We had 26 players against me. I played a raid boss named Andreel, and we had a good time. I learned lots of things at the time, which I'll share with you, some of the lessons that I learned on this podcast. And this year we did it again, and we did it much bigger, and it was closer to 40 players. It was like 36 players or 37 or something. And we had a very full room. And I think there was only one table that was open. I think I had 11 tables, and you could fit 4 to 5 players on each. And I only had one table that was unused. So it was a probably about 40 players then. So we had this epic raid boss fight. And so the first year that I put this together, I wanted there to be this big epic feeling of accomplishment at the end. However, with a board game, it's much different. It's more what I realized I was doing is I was turning Deliverance into a party game, which is a weird thing to do because it's a very kind of gritty, dark game where you play angels and you slay demons and protect saints, and it's very serious. So Deliverance kind of started to become a party game. So and the reason for that was I wanted players to have involvement with each other. So the way that we decided to do it was each group would bring one copy of Deliverance. So I had to have copies out there in the world for people to, play. And we sold at the time like 5,000 copies almost of Deliverance. And so we had like 8 copies easily in that area. I've never been there before. People joined in, and we had stock to sell last year. And so everybody came, brought their copies, and I sat them down in groups of 4 at various tables. And like I said, we had 11 tables in there. So the intent was to turn Deliverance a little bit into like a group experience that could span across different games. What I had players do was sit down in groups of 4 at a table with a copy of Deliverance that was, that they brought with them. They would choose their characters. They would set the map, the board up like I showed on the screen. I took just a screenshot of the map tiles on Tabletop Simulator and said, okay, set your boards up like this. And players did that. I had every group set up the exact same way. And there was one map tile in the center that represented the raid boss. If you could hit that, or if you could target that, then you could damage the boss. And at the end of every round, players would tell me how much damage they dealt me and other things like that. So what I was concerned about was that there would be a bunch of different groups playing in isolation. And so I felt that in order to really achieve the kind of unified, we are a group working together effort, I did a couple of things. First thing was I did what's called the mechanic was called a floating bauble. We would drop a floating bauble on one of the tables. And I didn't tell players what it was. But if they moved to it, they could break it, and they would get divine aid, which I also didn't explain what it was. to players. But if only one table got it, it's like this big shiny object. They want to figure out what it is. And part of the experience of a raid boss is learning what these things do. So you could ignore it or you could go for it. And it was too shiny to ignore. Players always went for it. And they would get divine aid. These were actually a deck of cards, a deck of oversized cards that had raid wide benefits. Either they caused every player to gain another action and their turn would be more powerful. There was one card that would cause the boss to deal 0 damage and it's not allowed to take a turn. There were everybody gets healed, everybody is able to deal damage, everybody gets like angelic reinforcements, all sorts of different things that the divine aid deck did. So that would happen every single round, and everybody would really look forward to divine aid. And the way that we would gain it is you would roll 2 dice, and whoever had the highest total would gain the divine aid or the floating bauble on their player boards. If 2 tables, this is really important. If 2 tables rolled the same, I didn't have them re-roll until you rolled, one rolled higher than the other. I actually gave it to both of them because I thought more is just going to be more fun. If more players feel like they have connection to everyone, then it's going to be more fun. So now I also did other things. There was one really big thing that made this very successful the first time that we repeated the second time. So the first one was floating bauble. Second thing was the boss's skills. One of the things that he did every round, Andriel, every round was, he said, it said, "Impress me, peasants," was the ability's title. And I said that I'm looking for a fact, like a very interesting fact about Lord of the Rings or some other interesting fandom that impresses me. And if it does impress me, the whole raid, every single player will gain a level, which is a big deal in the game. And so it came up to like one person to share an interesting fact that I determined was interesting enough that they'd gain a level. And so it was like one person would raise their hand and they would tell me about, just something really interesting about a fandom that I didn't have any idea about. Or maybe it was, a fandom that I was very intimately familiar with, but something really cool that I didn't know. I think the very first thing that I got was, the one that everybody knows about Lord of the Rings, where did you know that Viggo Mortensen broke his toe on the helmet when he kicked it? And that his scream was a real scream of cry of pain. It's like, yes, I did. But okay, fine. Give him a level. Every time I gave people a level after one person shared an interesting fact, that's one person putting themselves out there. We're not just playing a game. It's like a social experiment where one person puts themselves out there. The entire raid would cheer for them. And I realized, okay, this is one way to get people excited and feel like, okay, this all matters. And then they would get into the battle where they've got their own demons to fight and that kind of thing. And every table is kind of working independently of every other table other than these mechanics. I had one last thing that was called my angel hit list, which was like, there were 9 playable angels last year and 18 playable angels this year. And so the characters, there were certain characters that I decided I hated a lot, and I would determine this through a dice roll and a chart that I put together. And so certain characters, like, all right, Michael, Gabriel, and Azrael, I hate you guys. And at the beginning of my next turn, you guys are going to explode, and you're going to deal yourself. You're going to get dealt 8 damage, which is a huge, huge chunk of damage. But it'll be reduced by 2 for every other angel that's next to you. So the idea was like, if you grouped up together, you would lessen the explosion. And then in the next phase, actually, we had if you were too close to each other, you would all take damage and it would be terrible. So the next phase was like everybody needed to spread out. So there was that happening, but only with particular tables because not all of those angels were at every table. And so it was a really fun party experience. So now that you kind of understand the raid, so they just had to deal me enough damage and I would be defeated. The very first experience was, so it was a 2-phase fight. So they would deal me enough damage, I would be defeated. I would go into my final form, and that was always a really fun moment for everybody, especially the first time. They're like, oh my goodness, because I've never seen this fight before. I've kept it secret from everybody, including my own Deliverance team. And so to get to experience that for the first time was like very special, where the art piece changed from like the happy Andriel to like now the angry, mad Andriel. And it was a fun experience. And then there was one area of failure that we had last year, which was at the very end of the fight, when I was defeated, like when the boss was defeated, it seemed so anticlimactic. It was like I didn't get the experience that I really was looking for. And that was everybody cheering that the boss was defeated. Well, so the goal was to go from 6 to 10 p.m. We started at 6:30, and this was last year. We started at 6:30. We didn't end till like 11:45. So this was, I mean, over 5 hours of battle, and it was late at night, and everybody had been to the convention all day, and so everyone's really tired and whatnot. And so part of it was that it was just late, and went long, and there were a number of reasons for that. It was difficult to get to figure out when certain tables were finished and other tables were not. All the people would chatter and talk, but so it felt like we just had a lot of holes and errors and things like that made it very small. But then at the very end, after the boss was defeated, everyone's like, "Yay, we did it! All right, we can leave now." And we fixed that this year with by adding raid loot, because everybody needs loot after a boss is defeated. You have to loot the boss, and so that actually changed everything for us. So why I could talk more about this raid, but I feel like the important thing is, now that you guys kind of understand what it is, why I did it. First thing is, the experience that people received was different and unique among every experience they've ever had playing a board game ever. And I say this for most cases. There are certain games, like I think about Fantasy Flight games, like Con of the Rings is a convention that is relates to Lord of the Rings, the LCG from Fantasy Flight games. And I know they probably also do Marvel Champions as well. But they do events with like massive amounts of players that everybody's playing kind of the same events, or maybe against one boss or something like that. But overall, that's a very tiny piece of, and that's only from what I can gather. I've never actually been to that. And so every single person experiencing this, it's like it became one of their top 10 memories of all time in gaming right away. That is something that I think we as designers need to look for. Like, how can we make it feel like to our players that this is an experience you've never had before, and something that you couldn't do with any other product at all. And that's how I did it. This came from my experience playing other MMOs. This came from the experience of grouping together and doing this thing, and doing it in a way that I kind of understood intrinsically. And so my question for you is, what do you understand better than anybody else? Or what do you understand very, very well that you can apply to your game? Like, if you took your kind of limits off and figured, like, if you had, this is what I asked myself: if I had an unlimited amount of money and an unlimited amount of time and resources, what would I do, with this game? And what would it be? And so I said, it'd be really fun to do a raid like that. And after the first raid, I'm like, it'd be really fun to do that with 100 players. And so like, how can I do that with so many players? And we're actually kind of building toward that. So we are building an app for Deliverance as a raid helper. We tested it for the first time this, 2 weeks ago. And, when we ran the raid, or a week and a half ago when we ran the raid, and it was very, very helpful. And I'm on my way to running a 500 person raid at Gen Con. That's, eventually we'll do something crazy like that. We'll have, we can do a whole convention for Deliverance that that is meant to celebrate Deliverance, but is also just meant to celebrate and play games. And we can do a raid with the entire group in the main hall. That would be fun. But these are things that are possibilities that, as I obviously don't have unlimited money, I don't have unlimited resources. And many of you listening to this know I have 7 children. Like I'm not a wealthy man, but I don't think I'll ever be, because of how, just I've decided to have so many mouths to feed in my household. But this is something that it's like, okay, now that I have a vision, the question is not, can I get it done? The question is, how can I get it done? In what form does it need to take for me to get it done? What steps do I need to take? Step 1, 2, 3, all the way to step 99 when I've got the thing accomplished. So it's more of a puzzle for how to make it happen. And that's, as a business owner, you kind of need to, that's your job. Like you're a puzzle solver. And if you want to continue to innovate, then find interesting puzzles for you to solve that would provide an incredible experience for your players, and then go about solving them, come up with a plan to solve them. So you can do things that are outside of the box if you can envision it. And the reason that I was able to envision it is because I've had that experience before. And I'm thinking, I now know, and this is not me making it up out of the genius of my mind. Like, I've had this experience before. So all I have to do is figure out how to replicate that experience with this product, which, I saw potential to do. So that's the first kind of reflection. So, like, what could you do that would give players an epic experience that is one of a kind? Now, for those listening to this podcast, they're like, I don't know. You need to have more experiences. So go out and play lots of games. If you're a board game designer, go out and go to conventions to experience a convention. You don't need to go to every convention to sell your product. You need to go to every convention to primarily, you need to experience other people selling their products, experience other people that are doing it well, and they will inspire you. So, like at Origins, we had a fairly large booth. We were selling lots of games and playing lots of games and whatnot last year. And I made sure that I had enough people that could be at that booth that I could walk around and also have an experience at Origins. This is not just selfishness for me. This is because it's all market research. And I would encourage you guys to conduct market research. This means to play lots of games and to to experience other business owners that are trying to sell stuff. And listening to this podcast is helpful, but it's not the only thing that you're allowed to do. Right? You've got to continue to find things, find experiences that allow you the capacity to innovate. Once you know what's out there, then you can then innovate on what's out there. So, okay, now I said I would talk about my team first, and then we talked about the raid and that whole experience. But I'm going to go back to the team. So I run a staff of, it's a staff of 8. This is on the Crowdfunding Nerds side. We have 2 brands. One is Next Level Web. Another one is Crowdfunding Nerds. And on the Next Level Web side, we do digital marketing for small businesses, usually small service businesses that are like plumbers, and we have preschools and whatnot. Our clients can vary in size, but in general, we aim to get them to rank at the top of Google for keywords that matter, and so on. And then the other side, we have Crowdfunding Nerds, which is the brand that we have for Kickstarter, crowdfunding marketing, and whatnot. And we also run a bunch of ads for other companies. So we help people sell stuff online after crowdfunding. We help people sell stuff that never went to crowdfunding or anything. We just, run Facebook ads, Google ads, etc., to help people sell things. And I've worked with lots of clients there. So we have about half our team dedicated to each side, and then I'm kind of the one who floats between both. And so I brought everybody, not just the Crowdfunding Nerds people, but also the guy that does the web development for Next Level Web. He does all the landing pages for Crowdfunding Nerds. But so brought everybody. The intent was that I am going to spend money on these people to show them a good time. That's all I cared about. This convention wasn't about making money for me. We actually had everything sold out. We do have pre-orders open where, we're doing pretty well on expansion pre-orders in our pledge manager, which I can get into those numbers, on another podcast. But so that's going well. But then, I really, and I knew we would make more, we'd get more pre-orders, but I felt like what we really needed to do is to just bond together as a team. We needed to, have shared experiences that we can remember, create memories and just have fun and get to know each other a little bit better. And so we actually had Sean come in from Ireland. First time I've ever met him was, last week in person. And I've worked with him for over 5 years now, which is mind blowing, And Richard came in. We had so it wasn't just Robot Richard. We got to hang out with him, and then Alex, who is the one that actually never played a game in his life, came in, and we taught him to play all sorts of games. He was playing in the raid. His mind was completely blown at that games could be like this, and we played a bunch of different games, and we brought the of course the rest of Crowdfunding Nerds team, Jacob and Donnie, and Ryan was the only one that was unable to make it. So I also brought my Deliverance team because it was a big Deliverance event. So the Lowen Games team. So we had a couple of 4 people coming from that side, and I rolled it was 12 people deep, including myself, and I had 3 hotel rooms, and we went and just had a ton of fun. And it felt like we really needed that, just as a team. So minor reflection, just as a business owner, when your team is happy, they will get more work done. But I feel like even beyond that, it's more about, and I don't know if this is true in every business, but when people are paid enough for to have a living wage, they kind of as a business owner, I know that people work for me not for the joy of working for me. They might find joy in the work that they do, but I know that the work they do is to enable them to live their lives. So in a way, I recognize I, as a business owner, am a means to an end. And so I think that some people make the mistake of saying oh, I need to you're working for me like I am your life now, and they will try to get people to just work 10, 12 hours in the chair and at their desk, and then they don't care what they do at home. They only care what they do when they get to the office or whatever. But I'm not that way. I think that if I tell people what's expected of them, and for me it's all about I need things done. If the work that is assigned to you is completed, then I don't care how long you take to do it. I care that it's done with excellence, and anything that I can do to enable you to do a better job or to get what you need in order to get those things done, I will do. So all of the people that I work with, they kind of take ownership in what it is that they're doing, and they tell me what they need rather than me as the boss telling them what I want them to do. They have kind of taken and embraced and said, okay, I'm going to tell you what I need. And my job is really to serve them. So I need to really, the boss, in my opinion, needs to be the biggest servant of all. So I tell people hey, if you have a personal issue, in fact, I actually say, if you need vacation time or if you get sick, you have unlimited vacation time, unlimited sick hours. I will give it to you. You will have it. I will not turn a vacation request down. You'll have everything you need, because my expectation is that you will get everything done and you will get it done with excellence, and that you'll manage your time so that if you have, let's say, an epic 6-day long nerd trip with the staff, that your stuff is going to be done. And if it's not done, you'll make it happen, or you'll explain to me or the team, or you'll figure out what you need in order to make it happen. And so a lot of that was going on. I had some of my team would say, oh no, I need to work in, it was like Thursday morning, and a couple of us came down for breakfast and a couple of stayed in their hotel rooms working away. I was like, okay, that's totally cool. The other part for me as a boss is to trust that what they're doing is, is, you know, is necessary. So I don't know how else to put it. I feel like it's really easy to say, okay, you need to get it done, but then to trust that whatever it is that they're doing is part of the process of getting it done. Whether that means that they're taking a break, or whether that means they're typing away on a spreadsheet. I need to trust that part of the process is that they're getting it done, and there's accountability. We meet every Friday. We always talk about every single client and the problem accounts and other things like that. And I think that and I look for opportunities to show my staff that I care about them. So, like for example, the Stormlight Archive RPG came out by Brotherwise Games, and if one of my guys is like a big RPG player and a big Stormlight fan, and I was like, it was like, I don't know, $500 or something to go all in with Stormlight RPG, and I jumped on that for one of my guys because it would be a meaningful gift. It's like something that, given even the wages that I pay, that's a very big expense. For anybody, $500 to get a game. And but I knew that if I grab that game, that he will appreciate it very much. And so I did, and he just received it like 2 days ago and was super ecstatic about it. But it's something that he'll remember that I did that for him. And every single time he plays that game, he'll remember that I did that, and it just, if I go out of my way to help my staffers, then they're going to go out of their way to make sure that I get what I need, which is I need every single client to be making money. Every single Kickstarter I want funded on day one. Every single marketing client I want them to the top of Google. I want excellence. So, and I want every client to feel that they are cared for. So, that is a major kind of consideration. So, there are other opportunities that I've run into that, one of them being, we had one of our team members dealt with like a chronic illness for a number of years, and they've worked for me for a long time. And I got the opportunity to meet their family. I'm being vague on purpose, but every single family member that I had never met before knew who I was and thanked me for being a good boss. And this person was, is very, just does such a great job for me. But there are certain weeks that they probably got maybe 10 hours of work in. It's just, but at the same time, it's like, okay, yes, I probably should have not paid for 30 hours extra when, I paid for a 40-hour week when somebody only worked 10. But they were like suffering through a real issue, and they would have lost their car or their apartment, or they, fallen dramatically behind on their credit card, or who knows. And it was within my control to say, okay, well, we're making the same amount this month that we did last month, because that's kind of how our business works. We have clients that use us, over and over again. I've had clients that have used us every single month. They pay monthly since 2013, like when we started offering SEO marketing. And so it tends to be very stable. Like as long as the marketing works, the client continues paying because they're happy, and so I just, it was something that I could do that I knew this person would appreciate, would value, it would matter, and said, rather than saying I don't care if you're sick, you need, then you don't need to say this explicitly as a business owner. You just need to say, like, I need this done. I need this done. And then they'll find a way to, you could give your team member an aneurysm because they're working for you while they're really incapable, or you could drive them out where they just have to quit. And everything kind of falls apart anyway. But when I work with that person and say, okay, I appreciate what you're doing. Please do what you can. We need to get these things done. Let me know what you need so that I can make sure these things get done. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops with me as the business owner. That really like formed an impression on this person that they're gonna work hard for me. When they work, they're going to work hard for me. And I think that a lot of the time, if you have to decide in the end, what is more important? Are the people more important, or is the money more important? And that decision is kind of made for you as a business owner. In the end, I believe your people are more important than short-term money. It's with the caveat that it's very important that the bank account never drops to zero. And if you are on your way to failure and it's due to lack of proper management, that's one thing. But to be penny wise and pound foolish, as the saying goes, those 30 hours that I lost, I consider an investment into that person who is worthy of investment. And they have repaid those 30 hours 100 times over because they wanted to, because I helped them. So they're going to help me. And I think that's how business is done. I also think that's how, just we should look at, fans of your game. Like, you're giving them something that is valuable, that's fun, that's this epic experience or whatever on their tabletop. If it's a 10-minute filler game or a 2-hour epic board game, they experience, they or RPG, they found value. Like, you provided them value. They paid you money, but you provided them value in excess of the money that they paid you. And so in return, they're going to talk positively about your product to kind of almost like reimburse that value that they've received. And I think that it's a very positive way overall for business to be conducted. Is that what I think about is, even the people I'm talking to, that those of you that hear my voice and that see me at a convention or whatever, I don't think like, oh, if I need to use the restroom, you probably know it. I'll probably ask you to walk with me toward the restroom. But I always try to think, like, how can I personally help or be of value to who I am talking to? Rather than like, I never think I'm a bigger deal than I am. I know I'm just this fringe voice in like a niche industry. And, but I can be helpful to that one person. And then in return, who knows? I mean, I've had people that have said, oh, I appreciated your advice on game design. And 3 years later, they sign their game with a publisher and we market the game because of, how that I treated that person. And I think that type of thing it's just an awesome side effect of, deciding that I want to give value to others. So I hope that you guys gained a value from this podcast, and that you guys, just go out and make the very best products with the most amazing experiences that are out of this world that you can. And give me some credit on your box cover if you do something so amazing, or on the back of the box or in the rule book or something, be like, I couldn't have done it without Andrew Lowen exploding my mind. All right, until next time, Robot Richard, send us on out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.
Hey, crowdfunding nerds, it's Andrew Lowen, and I wanted to introduce you guys to the Crowdfunding Nerds Academy. If you don't know, we have a do-it-yourself course system that will teach you how to build, excite, and prepare a crowd to fund you on your launch day, and that is our goal. I have used these systems to help raise over $30 million for tabletop campaigns, over 200 tabletop crowdfunding campaigns since 2019. I've generated over $100 million through e-commerce sales using these processes. These courses teach you how to replicate our results. They're made for the small creator. Over 150 of those people were first-time creators. These courses contain hundreds of hours of podcast discussions and tons of details that are almost impossible to find on the internet. And they have been distilled into concentrated courses that you can absorb quickly. They are designed to generate results. We hold nothing back. Visit crowdfundingnerds.com/academy to learn more, or just Google search Crowdfunding Nerds Academy.